This 2025 running back class goes well beyond Ashton Jeanty, and we're going to prove that to you today. There is a lot of depth, a lot of potential, a lot of guys that, honestly, we're not quite sure about yet, that are in this class that could potentially be a starting running back for your Dynasty Fantasy Football team. We're going to go into all that today. We're going to rank each of these rookie running backs in our initial 2025 Dynasty rookie running back rankings. Again, this is initial. Everything is going to change. Running back is probably the hardest position to predict in Dynasty. It just is. You can't really nail it down to a science, so we're going to talk about all these guys and kind of give you our thought process behind them. First, big announcement. Version 2 of our 2025 Rookie Draft Guide is available to you now on the Flock Fantasy site. You get that with any code domain membership, so flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain when you sign up. Any membership is going to get you the Rookie Draft Guide. Plus, we're going to talk a lot about the bakery today. The bakery is now available for you if you are a DOMAIN MotherFlocker and you are a part of the annual tier. You're going to get a copy of the bakery for free and be able to see all of these rankings. So like I said, go to flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose a MotherFlocker tier to unlock both the Rookie Draft Guide and now the bakery, which is available to everybody.
Ooh.
So, all right, let's start with the S tier here. No question, no surprise. Jeanty is one of the best prospects we've seen in the past 10 years. It's Saquon, and it's Bijan, and it's Ashton Jeanty. And this guy was one of the most productive college running backs of all time. He has a skill set where he really doesn't have any weaknesses, right? He is extremely fast, extremely athletic. His reaction time is great. He's extremely elusive. I mean, the dude stands in the backfield straight up and down, and then as soon as the ball snapped, grabs the ball and just runs past every single person. He's fast enough to beat anybody on the outside. He's got outside speed. He has elite contact balance in the open field. The dude, there is literally nothing not to like about him. The one thing that people might say, oh, we don't know with Ashton Jeanty, is his receiving game usage. But we did see that last year.
Yeah, don't be fooled.
Look, okay, you have the option. You can either A, give Ashton Jeanty the ball and he'll average 9 yards per carry and score a touchdown every other play, or B, you can try to use him in the receiving game because, like, you don't need to use Ashton Jeanty as this dynamic receiving back in college because he's literally killing it on the ground. And so there really is no reason to bring that up. He has the receiving upside. He has good hands. He's going to be used that way in the NFL. He's going to be a 3-down back. He has the size to do it as well. Again, maybe pass protection can be a little bit better for Ashton Jeanty. That's literally the only thing we have written down for, like, what can Ashton Jeanty actually do better?
Couldn't even find 3 weaknesses.
No, he's going to be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft to a team that needs a running back. He's going to go there. He's going to play 70% of snaps or more in an age where, you have committee backs pretty much almost all across the NFL at this point, and a lot of not good committees. He's going to be somebody that goes and he's probably going to get the majority of the valuable touches, whether that's receptions or touchdowns. He's the 101 in Dynasty, the 101 in rookie drafts. He's going to be a first or second round Dynasty startup pick, and at that point, you have hit the jackpot. If you have the 101, you have Ashton Jeanty, and that is a good player to have. He is locked in, no question, the 101 going into this year's Dynasty drafts.
Yeah, and one thing to touch on his receiving capabilities, I thought it was really interesting to note that earlier in the season, they played Oregon very early, Boise State did, and when they played that, when they had that matchup, they were actually trying to utilize Ashton Jeanty in the receiving game like they did last year, and Oregon was right on it. They knew what was coming, and they just stuffed every potential possibility of an explosive breakaway run that Jeanty could get in the receiving game, and it wasn't his fault. They were lining him up in the slot. They were lining him up outside. He was running out of the backfield as a check down option, and they were just on it because he was so good at it in 2023. Once he gets to the NFL level, you're going to have so many weapons, way better play callers and whatnot that are going to be able to utilize Jeanty's receiving skill set like Boise State wasn't able to in 2024 compared to 2023. So just keep that in mind. We're going to start now with the A tier. This is again, it's going to be a short A tier, but we've got some discussion to have, specifically with Omar Hampton that Avery's going to touch on. But we are going to start here with Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson is the second highest graded running back according to the bakery this year. Again, we've already talked about where he grades overall, like over the last 5-6 years. I mean, he's graded among guys directly behind Saquon Barkley, directly ahead of Jonathan Taylor, Etienne Gibbs, and Breece Hall. His efficiency metrics this year have been ridiculous. He had over 1,500 rushing yards. His receiving usage has been fine. But when you're looking at what he's able to do, when you're looking at the film and analyzing that specifically, Caleb Johnson Johnson is he has really good hands and he hits the hole hard. So he has really bell cow capabilities with some receiving upside on top of that. Decent contact balance. He's going to run really, really hard consistently. He does have that workhorse size. I want to reinforce that he does have workhorse size, and that's been demonstrated for the last couple of years at Iowa. Good straight line speed as well. He's not really going to be a burner. He's not ultra flashy or fast when it comes to finishing plays. So he can kind of get caught up by DBs downfield for some breakaway runs. His patience isn't like elite. Leaves a little bit left to be desired there. And again, kind of in line with his not like top end speed, he's not going to burn defenders or make a ton of them miss, especially in the open field. He's just very, very reliable. He again is going to be your stereotypical running back that's going to be able to handle a ridiculous amount of workload at the NFL level, and I think that's going to translate based off of what he's done in college.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, and you really saw they didn't really use him like they used him this year until they got to this year. They're like, hey, we're going to give him every single carry. Yeah. And lo and behold, for Iowa, all along, Caleb Johnson was probably the best playmaker on that team. They finally give him an opportunity to do it. He goes out this year, and he is one of the most productive backs. If Ashton Jeanty wasn't in this class, he would have been, as productive as anybody this year in college football. Cam Scatterboot, guys like that.
I mean, we would have been totally happy with him as our running back one if it weren't for Jeanty.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
in
exactly.
any class. So.
And the same, I think the same goes for Amari Hampton. So I'll cover him now. This dude is explosive, and for a guy at his size, and that's kind of the thing that you really look for in a running back, and you're going to see there are a lot of these guys in this class, actually, guys that have workhorse size that also have pretty good speed and athleticism, right? So he's explosive in the open field, but he's not afraid of contact, and that's what you get with a bigger guy like Amari Hampton, right? He will absolutely run you over. You saw it on his film. He will put his shoulder pads down, and he will run you over if he needs to. And with that, he has good contact balance, so he can go and seek out contact. He's going to maintain good contact balance. He's going to keep his feet moving, and we like to see that, especially from a guy that's playing in college, going to go to the NFL, going to play against bigger guys, faster guys, more athletic guys, better defenders. We like to see that aggressiveness and that contact balance combination to go with the size that you need to actually be a 3-down back in the NFL. He also is an effective pass blocker, and we're going to talk about that with multiple guys in this video. I don't want to shy away from that as something that's a very important trait for being drafted in the NFL, because really with running backs, what it comes down to is it's all opportunity-based. And you get on the field more if you can pass block effectively. That's just how it is in the NFL. And so he's good at that. And again, he's got workhorse size, and that's huge. The one thing I think I saw on his tape that I was like, yeah, his vision is average. I think he could be a little bit better. I don't think it's bad vision, but I just don't think it's fantastic. And he obviously has had receiving usage. If you look at his statistics, I think that's evident. He's not super versatile in the receiving game, so I think he's not going to be as versatile as a premier receiving back like you see out of some of these guys in the next year even, but even guys who have come out in recent years who have had elite receiving skill sets like Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not like that in the receiving game, but he's good enough, right? Similar to Breece Hall. Breece Hall coming out of college, we weren't, harping on his receiving game usage. He really wasn't somebody that we were like, oh, this is going to be his main skill set. But you see Breece Hall, and he has good hands, and he has good playmaking ability, and it's kind of the same thing, right? Even though it's not his number one strength, he can do it to supplement his very good running ability, and I think that's why he's going to be a second-round pick in the NFL draft. And so both of these guys, again, after watching Hampton's film, I could easily flip-flop these guys and put Hampton at 2, Caleb Johnson at 3. The Bakery, the analytics, loves Caleb Johnson, and again, Caleb Johnson is up there with Ashton Jeanty, actually. Not quite there, but both of them are top 5 prospects all time in the Bakery right now. And so, both of these guys are really, they would have been by far the number one back in last year's class, not even close, blow it away. So very excited about both these guys. Omarion Hampton is going to be somebody that I pick a lot of in Dynasty rookie drafts. So let's jump down to the B tier. I'll let you start with Trey Henderson.
Yeah, the B tier is where it starts to get fun. We are going to start with TreVeyon Henderson here, and I'll tell you what, I got to be totally honest with you. It has been a roller coaster of emotions and opinions on TreVeyon Henderson for me specifically. For the last couple of years, I haven't been the biggest Henderson fan, and the more I watch him and the more film I see of him, I like him more and more and more and more. And the more I believe that he really can be a direct, productive, translating asset to the NFL at the NFL level. And the big reason for that is, number one, I mean, again, this is kind of intangibles, but he's a definition of a team player. This guy is, again, when you think running back, you think, oh, is he a bruiser? Is he quick? Can he do all these different things? Yes, but he does unselfish things that a lot of other running backs just not that they don't care about, but they don't put as much effort into, like when it comes to off-ball blocking, down the field blocking and things like that. I literally wrote in the notes, I was like, potentially the best pass protecting back in this class. His vision and pass protection is ridiculous. He'll pick up blocks that not a lot of running backs are quick enough to pick up on, and he'll stop them in their tracks and give the quarterback an extra second or two to get the ball out of his hands and push the ball downfield. So that's going to be, again, when you're looking at the film specifically, like NFL scouts, I would assume are going to look at that and they're going to love it. They're absolutely going to love it because you can put him down in passing down roles and he can be effective on the field and then eventually end up being a nice check down option as well. So he's a great receiving option out of the backfield. Again, he's going to be there in passing down sets because he is such a good pass blocker. And then he's a decisive runner with vertical power and lateral quickness as well. I think he's demonstrated that consistently for the last 3-4 years since he's been at Ohio State as a true freshman. Again, we saw a couple of games against Penn State and Oregon where he had some nice explosive runs down the field. When you're looking at some negative things about him, he doesn't have like the best contact balance for a big body guy. He's kind of so set on getting the extra yard and running over someone to get the extra couple yards that he kind of keeps his head down and he'll get tripped up a little bit sometimes in the open field and fall down a little sooner than you would like to see him. And he leaves a little bit left to be desired there. He's got limited route running versatility. Again, he's a great receiving option out of the backfield. The versatility as a route runner really isn't going to be there. He's going to be more of your stereotypical check down option as a running back who has good, reliable hands, but isn't going to like go crazy with all these versatile routes. He's not going to be like an Aaron Jones, for example. So keep that in mind. He has demonstrated limited receiving sample size despite showing good signs there. So that'll be something that he will have to build on at the NFL level. And when you're talking about his vision, at the line of scrimmage, when he's hitting a hole, it is going to be a little spotty here and there. But again, that's something that I think you can, given the right situation at the NFL level, you can work with that and he's fine. So it's not something that we're going to knock him on consistently or anything like that. He belongs in this B tier, and I think he really has this season separated himself from Quinshon Judkins. They'll still be in the same tier, spoiler alert, but we do both prefer Henderson at this point over Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, and I've always liked Henderson a lot, and I think he's going to be a good NFL back. So,
yeah.
All right, now I can talk about my guy. There was really only one guy from like this huge next couple tiers of guys that I was like, I need to bring him up because I like him this much. And it's DJ Giddens from Kansas State. I freaking loved this dude's film. And his analytics are great as well. We'll start with his analytics. Obviously, we want to start and be as objective as we can here. His dominator rating on the ground was great, 8 out of 10. Receiving dominator, 9 out of 10. Obviously, a little bit of a later breakout, but not terrible there. The size-speed combination leaves a little bit to be desired. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. But I think game speed, I think you can see on the film he gets it done. He forces a lot of missed tackles. He's plenty elusive. He's plenty efficient. He gets plenty of yards after contact, and he's got good breakaway run percentage. And I think the reason that you see the breakaway run without the burner speed is because he is legit so good at making guys miss. When you watch this dude's film, that dude will plant his foot and boom! I mean, he is... You are leaving defenders in the dust. And so I'm watching his film. I watched the Arizona State game. I watched the Colorado game. He has fantastic vision. He's patient enough, but he also anticipates things really well.
So patient.
He follows his blockers very well, but he's
a running back coach's dream.
Absolutely.
In the NFL, because he follows his assignments and he runs behind his blockers, which so many running backs are too impatient that they'll just bounce the ball outside so often, almost to a fault. DJ Giddens will not bounce the ball outside,
right? Because
he trusts his blockers so much,
and it shows. I mean, the dude can run between the tackles the entire game and get to the second level and make a linebacker look like they're freaking idiot. It is over and over and over on his film. He's really good at planting his foot, making his defenders miss. He's got good size, and he also has good contact balance. And so, we talked about the missed tackles, and the reason he is forcing so many missed tackles, again, is because he is literally making defenders look silly out there. And I love it. I think he's got good enough size to be good in the NFL. Now, the one thing that, we kind of knock him for, he doesn't have burner speed, so he is making defenders miss getting to the open field, and he is getting caught from behind occasionally. The receiving game looks solid, but we don't really have a huge sample size for that yet as well. We'll kind of keep an eye on that. This is one of those, again, where I think he's plenty capable in the receiving game. So I'm not going to say, we don't know if he can be a good receiving back. I think he absolutely can. I think he will. And I'm not worried about that translating at all. I just don't think we had a big, sample size in terms of him being used like that at Kansas State. The pass protection is questionable. Again, that's going to be important for getting guys in the field. But DJ Giddens is a guy I think is going to go in the 3rd round. I think he's going to be a day 2 guy potentially here. And when you're looking at his bakery score, when you kind of toggle his draft capital from 4 to 3, he goes up to the running back 6. So I think the analytics agree. I think the film is really good. And I think DJ Giddens is a guy that NFL teams are going to like. He's already declared for the draft. I love DJ Giddens, and if I had to plant my flag on anybody right now, it'd be DJ Giddens. Again, I could be dead wrong. You could be dead wrong about any of these backs because that's just how it is, but I love DJ Giddens, and I think he's going to be a very good player in the NFL.
Yeah, Judkins, I think we kind of have a modest opinion of Quinshon Judkins. It's really interesting to note that in the bakery, even with the fact that he's a true junior, even with the fact that he's 21 years old and broke out as a true freshman at Ole Miss, he still has, with the same projected 2nd-round draft capital as Travion Henderson, has a lower overall bakery score than Henderson. That's just interesting to note. And I think some of it is going to be kind of the lack of elite level efficiency that he's demonstrated the past 2 seasons, including this year at Ohio State. He is getting he's getting more volume and opportunity than Henderson is on a weekly basis. Every single game, he's going to be more of your 1st and 2nd down option when it comes to how he's utilized at Ohio State. He's got solid contact balance and lateral quickness. He's not going to be like as explosive as you see with Henderson here and there, but his jump cut at the line of scrimmage, he has a really nice jump cut and an ability to kind of elude traffic with that quickness, and that's really, really nice. It's a great trait that people are going to like at the NFL level. Good vision and patience overall. I think he's a little more patient even than Henderson. His receiving capabilities are not going to be as promising as Henderson's, in my opinion. Again, it could just not have been demonstrated enough that we can say anything about it. Maybe it doesn't mean that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there. You see this with Wisconsin running backs at the NFL level all the time. They're just never utilized as receiving options. That could be the case with Judkins. We'll just see. It is going to be a weakness though heading into the NFL. We're kind of going to want to see how much he can show out even at the combine, just with his hands. Can he be a little bit consistent there and show something? Not really utilized again as a result on passing down snaps. That's more reserved for Henderson. So you're just not seeing a ton there. And his vertical speed is somewhat average as well. Nothing really to write home about there. But again, he's very overall as kind of your 1st and 2nd down back that can take a bell cow workload and has demonstrated that for multiple years. He's a very well-rounded, respectable back that I think a lot of people are going to like. Very athletic as well. So,
all right. Let's talk about these next 2 tiers.
This is where it gets crazy.
Because there are 9 guys in these next 2 tiers. And I don't know if we can change the graphic, but it's going to hopefully say C1 and C2 tier here. The reason that it says that is because really with these 9 guys, what this is these first 6 guys are like guys that were like, okay, we think these guys are going to be bangers no matter what. Like, we think these guys are going to go into the NFL. Yep. They're going to be very good at running backs, and we're very confident in them. Confident enough, because, again, running back is the hardest position to predict by far. What these next 9 guys in these next 2 tiers are arrange them any way you want, right? We have Devin Neal as the 15th guy here. You can put him at 7, and I'm cool with that. You can put Le'Veon Moss at 7, I'm cool with that. Woody Marks at 7, I'm cool with that. All of these guys can be moved around any way you want. Nathan and I have different opinions on all of them. We would definitely rank these guys very differently, but what we can agree is all 9 of these guys, what they have in common is if they go to the right situation and have the right draft capital, yep, then they can be as effective as anybody else in these 2 tiers. And so again, the C1, C2 tier, they're going to contain 9 guys, and we're going to start with one of Nathan's favorites, Cam Skattebo. I really like Cam Skattebo. A lot of people in the Dynasty community like Cam Skattebo, and I will be the first to admit he would, in a lot of ways, have to be an outlier to be ultra successful and hit at the NFL level just because of his age, his breakout age, and his kind of career arc in college. There's no really other way to put it. He's going to be like 23 years old heading into the NFL draft, heading into the combine, so a redshirt senior, I think, at least. But his film speaks for itself, and what he's been able to do specifically over the last 2 seasons at Arizona State
speaks for itself. I've touched on the receiving upside and the receiving capabilities. This guy, number one, his size is ridiculous, and his speed size combo is even more ridiculous. The guy has gotten faster every single year. He has gotten notably faster from last year to this season, and that has resulted in the success that we've seen on the playing field. The guy got a couple of Heisman votes. He's been so productive this season and has single-handedly run Arizona State into the college football playoff. If you remember, Arizona State was projected to be the dead last team in their respective conference, and they just won the freaking conference and have a first-round bye in the CFP. Cam Skattebo is legit on the ground and legit in the air. He's turning the corner on DBs as a receiver. Because he has that much impressive game speed. Again, once you get into the testing and the combine and all that, what's his actual 40 time going to be? I don't know. He could fall down in rankings a little bit based on what his 40 time is. His game speed speaks for itself. His contact balance is potentially the second best in this class. But I actually, it could be the best in this class. He has some of the best like highlight reel runs that you're going to ever see. His second level speed, again, he's going to punish linebackers. He's going to punish DBs. He's going to punish the biggest people in the trenches on the field. Cam Skattebo's yak ability in the receiving game is top notch. He just averaged, I think, like 13 yards per reception this season. The list goes on and on about the good things that Skattebo does. The biggest thing and the biggest knock on the analytics when it comes to Skattebo and why he's not in that really, really solid tier with Giddens, Judkins, Singleton, and Henderson is because of the age and the fact that he didn't break out that early. And again, the speed is going to be in question when it comes to the 40 time. So a lot is yet to be seen with Skattebo, and what his ceiling could be and his draft capital upside could be is going to be based on his testing metrics, in my opinion. But again, with him specifically, I'm sold on him as a talent, and what he's shown on the film is enough for us to elevate him quite a bit higher than what his bakery score currently is. And I think the same applies to Jordan James, who we have directly behind him. I personally am a very, very big fan of what Jordan James has showcased this season against Oregon. He's going to get a knock in the bakery score specifically. He's even below Cam Skattebo because it took him a little bit of time to break out, but he is younger. Jordan James, if you give him second round draft capital, actually would be in that tier with Henderson and Singleton. So that's something to note. And I think that's something that's very possible. He's not even 21 years old yet. He will be once we get to the NFL draft. The reason he hasn't had like ultra crazy production the last couple of years is because you have Bucky Irving to worry about at Oregon, right? So now you give Jordan James a bell cow workload this season, and the guy has been incredibly productive and way more explosive than I ever would have guessed heading into, really diving deep into his film. He's incredibly creative in traffic and at the line of scrimmage. He has top-notch contact balance. Top-notch. I mean, directly behind Cam Skattebo, he has very good contact balance in this class. I would put him up there with anyone. He's got impressive jump cut ability and lateral quickness overall. Great speed and explosiveness in the open field. I was trying to find a weakness in this guy's game, and it was tough to find anything as a true runner. Then you get into the receiving usage and the passing down usage. He's not going to do anything crazy, I think, in the receiving game, or he hasn't demonstrated that again at Oregon. So that's something that is going to leave kind of a bit of a question mark. How versatile can he be as a true running back in the NFL, as a true receiver? So he can get caught on his heels in the backfield when the play breaks down. Is that really a negative when the play breaks down? I don't know. I mean, how often is a play broken down to a point where he's tackled in the backfield right when he gets the ball? Like, not super often. But again, when you give this guy a hole, when you give him a decent offensive line, and again, what he's demonstrated at Oregon, one of the best teams in college football, the best team technically in college football this year, he has been phenomenal. And I think that there is a very, very solid chance that he gets incredibly respectable day 2 draft capital in the 2025 NFL draft.
All right, now we'll pivot over to two guys that I knew we were going to get yelled at for. So I'm going to take them because I'll gladly yell back at you. Nathan will probably be a little bit more reserved. I'll gladly yell back at you for these. Not really, because again, I think if you want to rank Nick Singleton at the bottom of this year as the running back 15,
or even lower,
running back 15 in this class, is nothing, okay? So, like, again, some of these guys are going to be completely irrelevant. Nick Singleton's obviously a candidate for that, but for right now, we'll have him in this C1, C2 combination tier of these 9 guys, somewhere in here, just because he does have some good qualities to him. Let's talk about it, because everybody, I'm to the point where we're getting bullied in the comments for, like, talking about Nick Singleton in a positive light, and I think that's a little bit ridiculous. If you're playing Dynasty and you're evaluating prospects to the point where you are already completely writing off a running back with enough qualities as Nick Singleton to be an impact player in the NFL in December, when we have literally not only January, but also February and March and April before we have the draft. If you're writing off a player before then, I've got to tell you, I totally disagree with that process. 100% disagree with it. Do you realize how much stuff has to happen before the draft? It is a monumental amount of things, not to mention the 2 biggest things themselves. Number 1, the combine, but number 2, the draft itself, right? Let's talk about Nick Singleton. He's a good route runner, and he's a good receiving threat out of the backfield. I think anybody who's watched him in the postseason has kind of realized that. Obviously, he's sharing the backfield there in Penn State, but he is a good receiving back. He's got good hands. And so because of that, because he's got super soft hands, because he's a big guy that is a very good athlete. He's a freak athlete, right? For as big as this guy is, to be as fast as he is, to be athletic as he is kind of an anomaly.
He's making contested catches in the red zone as a running back.
And so that's not, that alone isn't a reason to say, oh, we think Nick Singleton's going to be a 2nd-round pick in the NFL draft, because I don't think that. But at the point where you are huge and extremely athletic and a good receiver as a running back, I feel like there's enough there to say, okay, maybe this guy could get drafted into the right situation to be used. Now, again, like Nathan said, he's an effective receiver. He has red zone contested catch ability. He trusts his blockers, and he is a punisher. Again, we talk about getting on the field opportunity. He is a very good pass protection back. That could get Nick Singleton on the field, and he could see NFL stats because of that. Like, he will kill you.
He'll pancake linebackers that are coming in on blitzes.
The obvious, and I say obvious because any 4-year-old who watches Nick Singleton's film could get in our comments and say, well, Nick Singleton, there's enough tape to tell you that he's not a good back. Okay, sure. He's not going to make defenders miss. He has literally no lateral quickness, right? It does not look good on tape. Totally understand this. His vision is spotty. He hasn't been very durable while he's been in college, although he's ginormous, right? He struggles to create when the play breaks down. Again, he's not creative. He's not going to move outside a lot, and he has average contact balance, and for a big guy, you don't like to see that. There are plenty of cons here, but the pros and the cons are kind of balancing each other out at this point, to the point where having him as the running back 9? Is that where we have him?
It's not even that aggressive.
And saying he could be as low as the running, like, what we're basically acknowledging here is that he does have some good traits. That's pretty much the case with all these guys. None of these guys are going to have complete skill sets, because if they did, they would be with Omar Hampton and Caleb Johnson. That's literally what the tiers are for. So every guy in this tier, including the next guy, Ollie Gordon, they're going to have some good things about their game and some bad things about their game. And Ollie Gordon, yes, Ollie Gordon was one of the most disappointing running back stories in terms of things we were keeping track of this year in college football. No doubt. When you watch his film, you realize he's a physical runner. He has very good contact balance, like Nick Singleton. He has pretty good size. He has light feet for that size, though, and he navigates traffic at the line of scrimmage well. I think he does this better than Nick Singleton. He's a freak athlete. He's got really good open field speed, better than, again, I think in that case, he could be a little bit different than Nick Singleton. He does have good open field speed, and he's effective as a receiving threat out of the backfield. So again, this is another guy with good receiving upside that has good size. He's a good athlete. Obviously, again, was a guy that was super productive last year, came in this year. Oklahoma State went from being a pretty solid team to an awful team, and with that, there was a lot of regression on the offensive line, and I think it showed in the film. And so I don't think it's all his fault.
And the way that they just were forced to play those games. Once you're down so quick so often, you're not running the ball and burning time off the clock. You're playing catch up in the passing game. And Ollie Gordon is just, again, by default, not going to get as much volume as he did when Oklahoma State was a much better team last year. 100 less carries this season.
Yeah.
That's not his fault, not getting the carries.
No. And so when you're talking about some of the the bad things about Ollie, he doesn't have very good pass protection. He's a big guy, isn't good in pass pro. His lateral quickness, again, it's still average at best. Okay. And then he's also been very inefficient in the passing game, and that's something we look for going to the NFL. And if he doesn't have that receiving skill set, doesn't have that receiving upside, then I think it really limits his ceiling, but also really lowers his floor in terms of his range of outcomes as an NFL back. And so he has plenty of questions. He's still a good prospect, Number one, because of his size-speed combination and because he does possess some very good traits as a running back. Number two, his analytics are fantastic. I mean, we're projecting him right now as third-round draft capital at the most, but even if you take it down to fourth, it obviously drops him a lot, but in the bakery, he still has pretty good metrics, pretty much all across the board. He doesn't suck at one particular metric, so it's kind of keeping him up there in that next tier. Now, obviously, if he slides way far in the draft, he's going to drop down in the bakery. But he is somebody that I think has potential, and I'm not going to completely write him off yet. Again, if you want to move him to the bottom of this tier, that's fine. But I think he's above the guys in the tier below this, or the tier below the C2 tier, and I think that you should be keeping an eye on him no matter what. So,
if Dylan Sampson doesn't, or if Dylan Sampson does move up our board significantly over the next couple of months, don't be shocked. The production has been phenomenal at Tennessee this year as a junior. He was competing for touches with Jalen Wright last year. So he didn't have like elite production or anything like that. It came his junior season. He has 22 touchdowns on the ground. He's got a little bit of receiving usage, but again, that's not really going to be his biggest strength. This guy is very, very athletic as a runner specifically. The jump cuts that he showcases at the line of scrimmage are very good. One of the things that stood out to me the most with Dylan Sampson is there was a game that I was watching. It was a Florida game this year. He's got a signature spin move that it's like a contact balance spin move. He uses it to like break tackles. Some people like have spin moves to elude tackling or to get away from someone or juke them out or whatever. He's like spinning out of people's tackles, and it's not just a one-time fluke thing. He has done it multiple times, and he showcases it multiple times in multiple games. That it's kind of like a signature move that he has, and it's really, really unique, but it's incredibly effective and a testament to the athletic ability that Dylan Sampson, I think, is capable of having and showcasing at the NFL level, given solid draft capital. He's very athletic, again, like I already said, explosive at every single level. He's got another gear, again, in the open field at the second level. Decent discipline between the tackles. He leaves a little bit left to be desired there. He doesn't have, every once in a while, again, I think this is kind of due to some inexperience. He's not like the most mature runner. He does get impatient here and there, and a lot of running backs do get impatient here and there, where he just doesn't want to wait long enough for a hole to open up that he'll just bounce it outside here and there. It's not enough where I'm like, okay, that's a big time concern, but it's something that he's going to have to work on at the NFL level. And again, he'll rely on a lot of that is because I think he knows how athletic he is, so he relies on his athleticism to just outrun someone on the outside. It's okay to do that every once in a while to be creative and whatnot, but don't do it too much where you're starting to rely on it a lot. And again, as a receiver, we want to see more there as a receiver. That's something there's going to be a lot of question marks there. He doesn't have a ton of crazy yak ability. He's not super efficient on a per reception basis. So that is going to be a weakness in his game that is significant. But as a true runner, as a true athlete, I think this is a guy that you're going to want to have eyes on. Especially if he has a really, really solid 40 time.
Again, the C2 tier, the C1 tier, this is really all just one big tier. We'll continue this tier with Woody Marks. And Woody Marks is a guy that people have been like, okay, you've got to have an eye on this guy. Where's Woody Marks? And so, now we've had a chance to really dive into his film, dive into his analytics, and these are two things that really, really disagree with each other. Because the film is fantastic. I really like his film. I think as a receiving back, he could be very useful in the NFL. He's got soft hands. He's very good in open space. He's very good at making defenders miss. And I think that kind of translates to when he's running the ball as well. When you watch his film, I think Nathan watched the Nebraska game. I watched a different game. I can't remember which one it was. He was very good. I mean, he was making defenders miss. He was patient. He had good vision. So he was just shifty, moving all over the field. And he also, again, had that receiving upside. And so I think the combination of those two things could bring Woody Marks up to these rankings, and it's as high as maybe the B tier, right? He does have some things to him that I feel like aren't great. Obviously, he's not the most elusive guy, and that shows in his PFF elusivity score. He's not very good, in terms of contact balance. He's not going to get a ton of yards after contact. He's not going to make defenders miss a whole lot unless he's doing it in open space. And he's not going to get great at pass protection either. Now, again, with a guy with receiving upside and a guy that has good film, I think he is somebody that could make his way onto an NFL roster and be an impact player really from the start.
This is a guy that I think more than anyone else in the tier, I don't care if he goes third round to a bad landing spot or fifth round to a good landing spot. Like I view them the same. Like if he gets the draft capital premium or the landing spot premium day 3, I want him to go to San Fran.
Right.
That's where I want him to go.
Right. Yeah.
I would rather him go to a better landing spot and have worse draft capital than the other way around.
I think I'm with you. So with Woody, again, you can put Woody as high as 7 in our rankings, and we're cool with it. You can put him as low as 15, depending on how you feel about him. He's one of these guys where the draft capital, the landing spot is probably going to be very key for him. Although with him, like Nathan said, we think it's probably not going to matter a whole lot because he really does show that he is. I think he's going to be used wherever he goes.
He's a unicorn from a skill set perspective. It's hard to even like the reason he doesn't grade out well in the bakery is because he has to be classified as an exclusive running back.
Right.
And the receiving skill set, there is a premium there, but it's so special and so unique that he just doesn't fit. So that's going to merit a really, really low grade for him. So it's enough that we're giving him kind of a premium here in the way that we're ranking him. So Brashard Smith is going to be the next guy that we have here. Avery likes Brashard Smith a lot. I haven't watched as much of Brashard Smith as he has, but from what we've seen and what Avery's seen, the patience that he showcases as a runner is really solid. He has great footwork. He's incredibly athletic and has really great speed. Again, very similar to Dylan Sampson. He does in fact have burner speed. He will burn you in the open field. He'll cook you there. He's got a collection of moves to make defenders miss as well, which is nice. So some versatility there. Yeah, that's again just going to showcase his athleticism if he's got a lot of tools in the belt. He's very undersized, and that's going to be the biggest knock on him. So in contrast to a guy like Dylan Sampson, who has the athleticism and size package, Brashard Smith is going to be a bit smaller. He's extremely thin. He's not going to be an every down back. You're not going to count on him being an every down back at the NFL level. But as we've seen over the last couple of years, that's starting to matter less and less. You don't have to be an every down back to be ultra productive. See Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Average vision at best. So again, he'll burn you with his athleticism. He can beat you that way. But the vision's got to get better, especially between the tackles. Contact balance, again, when he does get caught, he's not going to have like these crazy broken tackles or anything like that, and that is going to be because of his undersizedness.
Yes, that's how one would say that. Le'Veon Moss. I also really like Le'Veon Moss, and really it's less that I love Brashard Smith and more that I think he deserves to be up here just because if he goes to the right situation, he could be lethal as an NFL weapon. He just reminds me of somebody that would be in a Mike McDaniel offense, right? Small guy, super fast, can get the edge, can burn you, right? Le'Veon Moss is different than that, right? I do think Le'Veon Moss has, a good enough speed and he's fast enough to finish big plays, right? So you see him get in the open field, and a lot of times you would think a guy his size, he does have workhorse size. This is why I think he's a very intriguing prospect. I think he could be drafted somewhere and end up taking an every down role. He's obviously a sleeper to do so. He's not going to be as high as heralded as some of these other prospects, but I do think he's fast enough to finish big plays. He has workhorse size. He has good contact balance as well. Again, you have the combination of contact balance and size is going to make you pretty good NFL prospect. Now, really, the main things I have against him. The route tree is limited, and so I want to see more of that showcase in his game. Again, I think that is something that can be unlocked at the NFL level with the right coaching and the right scheme. And then the durability, obviously he has maintained some injuries. He obviously had a season-ending injury this year, and so I would want to see that kind of improve as he got into the NFL, and that's going to be, I think, something that NFL teams, especially when they're considering drafting him this year based on the fact that he had an injury this year, I think that's something they're going to be considering. But right now, when you change his bakery, when you toggle that to third round, he jumps up into that second tier of guys with Trey Henderson, with Quinshon Judkins, and then it would be Le'Veon Moss. And so really he is going to be somebody that has the analytics to where if the draft capital were to jump up, the analytics support him being a very good prospect in this draft, as well as the film. Again, I like the film. Big guy, will run you over, but has good speed in the open field. Workhorse size, I think he's kind of a wild card. Again, if he goes to the right spot, if he were to go somewhere where it was a wide open running back room, I would think Le'Veon Moss would have the opportunity to take over that backfield. And I just think I think he's a sleeper. But again, very landing spot, very situationally dependent. So
I think of all the running backs in this tier, the C1 and the C2 tier, Devin Neal probably has the highest floor. He's obviously a guy that a lot of people had eyes on last season, and then surprisingly he came back to Kansas for his final year in college. And he's just the definition of consistent, reliable, and mature. He runs and he plays football like a veteran. And I think there's going to be a place for him at the NFL level. People are really going to like that about him. Very consistent, reliable as a true runner. He's got a well-rounded skill set overall when it comes to what he can do as a receiver, as a runner in the open field, in the backfield. Very disciplined. He can line up as a receiver in the slot or out wide, but he does kind of have average hands at best, in my opinion, in the receiving game. Kind of a couple of the games that I watched, he showcased a couple drops, which is a little bit of a concern. But again, that just kind of goes to show that he's good, not great at literally everything, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. When I was watching him, I kind of just was bored watching him because I knew exactly what he was, and he never showed that he was anything different any game ever. Because I mean, the last 3 seasons, 1,000. Like, he just, what he's going to do from a production perspective at the NFL level if he's paired with another running back and gets a consistent enough opportunity where, like, this guy just has a floor that I think is second to none in any of the guys in this tier. But he's not going to have as much room to skyrocket up boards like anyone else does in this tier because of their athletic capabilities. You just know exactly what Devin Neal is going to be. He's nothing pretty, nothing sexy, nothing flashy. But again, he probably, in my opinion, isn't going to screw you over if you take a shot on him pending solid draft capital.
All right, and then we'll go through the D and F tier. I'll take the D tier real quick. And these guys, again, are guys that we've seen enough concerns to where we're not confident that they're going to be very good prospects in the NFL. However, again, running back is pretty easy to be wrong, right? Yeah. RJ Harvey, he's been very productive. He's got good film. He's got good tape. We love his production at UCF. The main thing is that he's not playing in a Power 5 conference, and so that you kind of knock that against him. You need to see him with a bell cow workload. Really, against NFL-like competition. He did have a bell cow workload, though, this year at UCF and did very good with it production-wise.
He's also 10,000 years old.
He is an old prospect.
He's going to be 25.
Yeah, so I think, again, he's kind of a wild card. I think he's somebody that's very productive, but you never know. Kyle Monungai, he obviously played at Rutgers. He was behind Isaiah Pacheco. He still, he's smaller, but he has had a lot of touches in college. He's pretty consistent. He's shown that he can handle a bell cow workload as well. He has been pretty inefficient against more athletic defenses. He also wasn't used much in the receiving game, and so that's kind of the main knocks against him. I like him as a kind of a sleeper still, but just not sure about him. Damian Martinez, Nathan is higher on Damian Martinez than I am. I think Damian Martinez doesn't have a ton of receiving upside, and his main skills are going to be on the ground, but he's a
true bruiser.
And he's a true bruiser, and he doesn't have the speed to finish plays.
Right.
And so that's why I feel like I have a really hard time seeing him fit in an NFL situation where he'd get a lot of touches.
He's like a Gus Edwards.
That's exactly where I would put it. And I would even say, again, it was going to be very, very situationally dependent. And then Trevor Etienne, he's probably the most average running back prospect in this class. He's not like terrible at anything, but he's not really great at anything either. He's got a good BMI, but like when you're looking at his analytics, he's like right in the middle of the bakery. Like the only thing that he's above a 7 on, actually he's not above a 7 on anything. It would be breakout age and speed. He's at a 7. I mean, he's literally just kind of average across
missed
the board.
tackles force per attempt.
Yes, and so
he's at a 7.
Yeah, he's at a 7 on that. So with Trevor, I don't think Trevor Etienne's going to have a huge role on an NFL team, but I think it's possible given the fact that he did play at Georgia, played at a big school, played in the SEC, and was productive there as well. So
yeah. So at the top of this final tier here, I'm going to run through these last 3 guys pretty quickly. Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn. I'm not going to lie, Avery and I didn't really love him that much. Watch him against some pretty high-level competition. That's going to be the closest to NFL competition as you're going to see between Georgia and Alabama and their defenses. He's fundamentally sound. He's got some effective blocking ability on the outside. The receiving capability is there. It's just not often demonstrated, so you can get fooled a little bit there with the lack of production that you're going to see in the receiving game. It is there, the ability. But again, when it comes to his athleticism, nothing to write home about at all. He just kind of has a cap ceiling overall, not notable speed or shiftiness in the open field, not effective as a cutter. He's not very shifty or anything like that. Doesn't have a ton of lateral quickness. He's not ultra creative. He kind of just gets the job done. Then you've got Kalel Mullings, who we've touched on, out of Michigan. He ended up being the better running back this year over Donovan Edwards, who's been very popular the last couple seasons. But he obviously very late breakout age because he started out as a linebacker, then ended up translating as a running back at Michigan. He's like a 5th or 6th year guy, so he's going to be older. And even with him being the best runner there, or the best rusher for Michigan this season, that wasn't really anything to write home about from a production perspective because Michigan overall just wasn't that great and he wasn't crazy efficient or anything like that. And then we're going to close out here with Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks just is kind of the last guy that made the list here. He's creative at the line of scrimmage when the play breaks down. He has light feet, quick decision making for better or worse. He makes decisions too quick sometimes behind the line of scrimmage and isn't patient enough to wait for anything to open up between the tackles. So he'll kind of bounce things outside here and there. He struggles in pass pro. He doesn't have really great speed at all. Limited receiving capability as well. So he's just, again, one of those guys, not super athletic. He'll be a day 3 guy that maybe you want to take a shot on depending on what the landing spot is, but not expecting a ton from him.
Okay, so it's version 1. Again, everybody's going to be wrong on everything with running backs. Like
yes.
that is how it is, right?
The C1 and the C2 tier is where you're going to see the most movement by far.
Yes, and again, arrange those guys in those 2 tiers any way you want. I'll say it again. Don't get mad about, Woody Marks should be at the top of that tier, or Jordan James should be at the bottom of this tier. Move them any way you want. Right now, we're fine with it. All these guys have redeeming qualities on film that could, with the right situation and right draft capital, be pretty good. And again, this is a very deep running back class, but dissecting exactly how it's going to play out with draft capital and landing spot being such big factors here is virtually impossible, but still fun. And they're definitely deep enough to know that if you need running back help, this class is going to be a very good class to help that for your Dynasty team.
Yes.
Very good. So make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed these rankings. We obviously worked very hard to make sure we were bringing you some accurate analysis here. Make sure you're subscribed if you play Dynasty. Flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Sign up for the annual MotherFlocker tier to get a free team blueprint. And you get our rookie draft guide, and you're going to get a copy of the bakery that we talked about in this. Like I said, the bakery is going to be for our annual members, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Choose the annual MotherFlocker tier. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later.